You can tell our friends, and they can have my things when we're dead. But we gonna live forever. We gonna live forever.
And we are back. Although the mask on the table, pop that.
Pop the mask. At least you have a mask.
After the demands from the fans, a second Miami crossover podcast.
The Miami pod.
Still only for the boys.
I just bring the shit up just in case people are wondering. We just got the worst Jamaican patty maybe I've ever eaten in my life from this
Daniel
store.
was not happy with the Jamaican patty.
Honestly, like, I am a fucking garbage disposal.
He thought
there
that the patty...
is so rare an instance where I'm like, this is like, there's a very rare instance where I'm like, I can't eat food. And then I was like, this is so nasty. I took it back. And the guy was like, yeah, he's like, it's old. And I'm like, so why are you selling it? And he's like, I'll just give you a new one. And then he just like nuked one in the microwave and I ate it and I burned the shit out of my mouth.
I'm midway through my patty and I noticed Daniel's disappeared and you go, where is he? And you walk into the bodega and he's like, excuse me, I believe the cooking wasn't up to my par.
Cooking?
When I was...
the best part is Ryan ate a 4-day-old Jamaican patty and he's like, this is pretty good.
I thought that I was getting a Jamaican batty boy and I paid $3 and I thought it was a steal of a deal for a Jamaican man's asshole.
I wish.
And boy, is your name Bud.
Bud.
I wanted to start... Before we talk about anything, I wanted to give a shout out to Lou Spears.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you guys haven't checked this out. Lou Spears. So he got this story published. And the story was that he got his cock trapped in a metal cage. And he got it republished on Vice. And he like documents the whole thing. But I saw that like 30...
As the Vice article.
Yeah, I saw that 30 days ago. And I remember being like... It's like they want me to make fun of them. I go look at this. I go... You know, when I'm thinking about articles, I'm like, I don't want to talk about Vice nonstop. But then Vice released an article. I got my cock trapped in a cage, and hackers locked the cage.
They're straight up doing it for purpose. Like, you know, it's just click. Like, they honestly are like, yeah, it's. I mean, you're obviously gonna get to like, but they don't care. They're just like,
no,
the purpose served, regardless of if it's real or not.
It is purpose served regardless. But the funny part is, and I think this was the kind of the theme of all fucking week, is they all double down on it. So they really, basically the article, he said that he got his dick strapped in a cage and then all these hackers hacked the cage and they asked him to send them Bitcoin. So he released it a month ago and they were releasing the article at the time and all these other blue check marks, blue skid marks were retweeting it being like great journalism, like a masterpiece. The one guy called it one guy goes, this is a masterpiece. And
do you think he was maybe talking about Lou's cock? And he goes, that's a masterpiece.
That's a nice piece right
there. That's a masterpiece right there.
Well, the Vice reporters probably for them, this is sort of a masterpiece because they were like, I was going to use that product. Right. I just ordered my dick in a cage.
You know what the real victim is in this? Is the company who manufactures that product.
Well,
and they're like, you can't hack our dick cages. They're unhackable. The whole time they've been like, you can't hack them, we swear.
They came back and they were saying like, no, you can't hack our dick cages.
Yeah, you can't hack our dick cages. They're like, they're not online. Like, they probably have to go do this whole thing where it's like, yeah, unless you hook up the dick cage to your Wi-Fi, like, you're pretty good.
Also, the Vice reporter probably had his dick in a cage when he got the email being like, you know, they can hack the dicks into cages. And he was like, what? He's actually someone sent me also there was one more thing about that is because basically in the Skype interview, so the guy does the Skype interview and he's saying, he's like, I actually kind of thought it was hot right now, and you could see the Vice report and the Vice reporter goes, I'm so sorry to hear that, but you could see in his face the Vice reporter is kind of like, that is fucking
and
hot.
so the dick, and it's just like a chastity belt essentially.
Yeah, it's a chastity belt,
and then it just like it locks.
Yeah, but someone sent me, maybe I'll do this another time, but someone sent me a different pegging article because we were talking about so much about the pegging, and Vice did release an article being like, why it's actually sweet to get pegged.
Of course.
Yeah, I did talk about it before.
Yeah, you could just feel like your girl does.
But I thought this week, so I had a bunch of them, but I thought it was like such the week of cell phones. So this journalist...
Cell phones?
It was this big cell phone. It was a big cell phone week. All these journalists, they retweet all this stuff and they're like, this was amazing. And then it gets proven false. And then they go, well, even though I tweeted
it doesn't matter.
Not once did these people say, I was just wrong.
Yeah.
So the shooter was the big cell phone of the week, right? So they literally...
Which one? The new one?
Yeah, good question. Which one?
We're back to, America is back, as they would say, because when you do a weekly podcast and you go, the shooter, and I go, which shooter?
Yeah, really. Dude, it's almost like they get too cocky too, because basically the shooter came out, and like I said, when they did the Asian shooter, people were making the Asian thing, and we discussed that. But it's also, I talked to 3 people that were saying that, and you go, well, there's white people too, and they go, what?
Yeah.
What do you mean? And they go, I never saw that. I saw 40 articles, and not one of them mentioned that
that the other white people died.
Yeah, not that it should matter, whatever. But then this week, the one was basically the white shooter, which everyone already fucking knows this, I'm sure. But the white shooter, they all said he's white or whatever. Comes out, he's like a Muslim guy, hates Trump, like the whole deal.
Trump. Yeah, that was like, he's like, he hates Jews, hates Israel, hates Trump.
Not wrong about everything.
Because he's like, he's not the worst guy. Let's just hear him out. And then they're like, well, it doesn't matter.
Well, that's the thing.
And he only killed white people.
He only killed white people. But when you saw the all the blue check marks, every single one of them, their tweet after was like, well, I may have been wrong. It actually is still, I was wrong about that one, but it is still white supremacy. And there was articles legitimately saying, they go, well, it's actually kind of still white supremacy anyway.
Yeah.
Because you have to understand that, Islam was influenced by white supremacy, so they're still like trying to. They're doing the math. They're all of
so funny because
the numbers in the air.
I'm pretty sure Islam predates white people, but just white people in general.
There's nothing they can't make those connections on. But I saw a legitimate article that goes, even though this guy wasn't white, it still is white supremacy.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy.
It's kind of like
who
it's sort of like
that?
how a dude being like with his girlfriend being like, even though you didn't cheat, the fact that you like looked at that guy, you're still gonna be punished accordingly physically.
You're like, I think you would have cheated. You're like, I think that, like, I know you didn't cheat on me, but I think, like, given the opportunity and the right set of circumstances, you would.
I always feel like
so I'm gonna just
and I always kind of feel like with so it comes out Asian shooter or the Muslim shooter, whatever, right? It kind of feels like they're trying to bait you into race statistics because they go, all of the, as far as crime stats go, it's all white people. And you go, anything you want to say, add to that?
I know. That's like, I see, there's a couple of like the conservative Asian chicks who are like, when the thing
they're
happened,
well positioned.
and they're like, this is our time to shine.
Yeah, it's well positioned.
Because they're like, they're the ones being like, we're the voice of reason. We are the affected party. And we're like, it's obviously
huge week for conservative Asian chicks.
He's like, he just was killing prostitutes, basically.
Yeah, but they go, every shooting and all like crime is done by white people, and that's what they say to you, and you have to go, and you go, yeah. Do you know like the memes where it's like the guy's sweating face?
Yeah, or like the 2 buttons.
Yeah. They sort of take and that's the thing is that they kind of. It's this cycle where they kind of say stuff like that, and then people go, I mean, if you want to get into crime statistics, and then they go, look at this guy, he's talking about race crime statistics. You go, you're talking about race crime statistics.
Yeah, exactly. You go, I don't want to.
Do you remember Once Upon a Time? You know the 90s kids memes?
Yeah.
There's like a 90s kids memes, like only 90s kids remember when it was right-wing people that like to cite race statistics.
Right. Yeah, now it's left-wing people. But they're just more selective. It's just the ones you choose.
Yeah, it's only 90s kids that remember. Only 90s kids remember when not everything was about race. Growing up and looking at your friend without like having his skin tone being the entire thing.
Yeah, back when just a shooter could just be a shooter.
Yeah,
they could just be themselves.
Which was sort of the good old days.
I mean, that's when it was all terror. It was either like terrorism or then lone gunmen. That's what it used to be. It used to be like basically it was always like the lone gunman.
That was
the big one.
Yeah.
There used to be a lone. It was a lone gunman, and then now they're like, no, we have to give them more motives. They're like, he can't nobody is like allowed to just kill for like the joy of killing anymore.
Yeah, you can't.
You're not allowed to just like you can't just kill because you're like I like the taste of blood.
Yeah,
not allowed anymore. Like they're like even if that is the case and you say it, you go, you kill, they apprehend you, and you're like, why'd you kill them? You're like, I just wanted to kill people.
They
won't allow
a woman, can they call that a hate crime if you murder because she's a woman, or is it only race?
I mean, someone's going to say it's
because if it's gay, it's a hate crime, right?
If it's like orientation, I mean, definitely.
So if I killed you,
yeah, that'd be a hate crime for sure.
Is that a hate crime?
You just be hated on me.
But they have.
I don't think so. I don't think you could kill one. But if you kill 2 women, then you're like an incel. But the question is when you say hate crime, it's like, are they going to try you for hate crime?
Well, I think the idea is you get more time.
But it's like,
Like if you
but again, like I know South Park did, but it's like you killed 10 people. What,
Yeah.
what are they adding on? Like,
I think the
it's
biggest thing is the
ceremonial.
death sentence someplace.
Right.
So they go, I fucking killed these 10 people. And then it's like, because he was gay, get him.
Yeah. You go, well, if you did it because they were gay, we're going to have to kill you.
Well, the whole thing,
Otherwise,
if you kill them.
otherwise we could let these 12 cold-blooded murderers slide. But
Yeah, just as opposed to before, I killed them because they wronged me by eating my last Jamaican patty.
right.
But there is that like cycle because, okay, if you look at, with the kids in the cages thing, I feel like sometimes the conservatives like take their bait, and even sometimes it's not even on purpose by these people. Like I said, they're kind of, they talk about race statistics, then they get people talking about race statistics, and they go, look at this guy talking about race statistics, and they're like, that's because you brought it up.
Yeah, well, we're talking about white race statistics. They're like,
Right.
ours are fine. And then they make you talk about, you go, well, here's the other side of this coin. And they go, oh, we got a racist on our hands. And you're like,
Ding, ding, ding.
It's like, what the hell?
We got a racist.
We got a racist.
Yeah.
And like,
So another one that I feel like, and is
although I will, sorry, just to cut you off, but it's like, if you do cite non-white crime statistics and you know them off the top of your head,
if you have them,
we've said that before.
It's not a good
look to know the like black crime statistics off the dome.
It's just not a good,
not a good look. There's not like unless you like work in that specifically field. Like if you work in criminal justice or something.
Yeah, what percentage of
maybe
murders were black people in
statistics.
Chicago? And you go,
Yeah,
allow me to step in.
You go. There were actually 1,024 murders last year in Chicago, black on black, and you're like, shouldn't know that.
Yeah, it's not great to know. But if you're like the percentage of the white supremacy, what percentage of mass shooters were white people? And they go,
100.
which is also, I guess, it's how you rig. It all depends on how they define it, right? Because if they go, if a mass shooting's 4 or more people, then apparently the stats are.
I mean, the best was they go. Yeah, they were just like, well, yeah, but like Syrian people are white. Like they just went to that with this guy who was the Colorado shooter. They go, but they're like Syrians.
I think
white.
I agree. I think all criminals are white.
Of course.
Like even, you know what I mean? It's kind of, how if you vote for the wrong guy, you lose your black card. Like any black person that does crime is not crime for me. It's like Charlemagne said, black men don't cheat. Once they cheat, they're now white.
They're now white. Yeah, that's how you.
But the another one would be, okay, if you the kids in cages stuff. And then Biden still has just as much kids in cages or worse or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And everyone's sort of taking the bait being like, haha, look at this guy has kids in cages. Like, you see Babylon Bee writing all the articles or whatever, all these kids in cages. And then you go, yeah, but then they're just going to be like, okay, we'll let them all out into the streets. And then you go, well, we didn't want you to do that.
Yeah, totally. But that's the one thing is like they're not doing.
But
that.
It's almost like that's a
like you're saying the right's now trying to bait like Biden into being like, okay, well then I'm gonna let them all out.
Well, they could just be like, okay, well, how about this? We put all of the kids in cages. Now we took their families out and we just released 10 million people in Austin.
A lot of the things with the kids in cages is they're unaccompanied. Like they're sent over as a 10-year-old without your parents. You're like, were you gonna like?
They just released.
That'd be crazy.
They released them into the sewer. They're sewer kids now.
Sewer kids now. Just like a bunch of children live in the sewers.
But
Not
it
the
does
worst
feel like,
strategy.
I guess that the kids in cages don't have accompaniment, but they could just, if you were it's kind of like the gun things. It's like the mass shootings. You get to do what you want. If you get everyone mad that Biden's like mistreating these immigrants, you could be like, okay, well, I think they said like some of them, they're like, we're giving them hotels now.
Totally.
And you're paying for it. And they're like, well, don't do that.
And they're like flying them to like Detroit and shit. They're like, we're gonna deal with them like in mission, process them. And
I would like an all expenses paid trip to Detroit.
I'm good on that. It is funny too because it's like with the Trump thing, they're like, oh, they're putting them in cages, and then this thing, and they're like, what are they? And you're always like, it's just always something in the middle. It's always the answer is always something like not as far as one direction. It's like everybody's like, I don't know. The one thing I do like, even though it's a kind of morbid thing, is like whenever there's like anything bad happens now and everybody's like, well, this is Biden's America. Like, how do you like on Twitter? It's always like from a tragedy, but then it's also like, because the same people were like, how do you like, this is Trump's America. And now people are like, okay, this is Biden's America. And people are like, no, this is still Trump's America. This is the stuff Trump did. No. This is the stuff Trump did.
It's actually Trump's America. It's actually Biden's America.
It's actually still Trump's America, technically.
It's actually still Trump's America, yeah. There, I say the third own which we don't have to go that much because I'm sure everyone's talked about it. The classic case where Ellery Smith, the comic.
Yeah, let's talk about it. I think a lot of people don't know about it.
Okay, so what happened was basically super like left-wing Hollywood comic type. She goes, basically
She's so left-wing that nobody knows who she is.
Yeah. She goes, basically Shane's like, remember when Shane Gillis got fired from SNL and people said it wasn't going to lead to violence? Well, basically look at now the shootings happen.
Yeah, point A, like Shane Gillis doing a podcast. Point B, like a fucking massage parlor
And
getting
it took
shot up.
15 seconds for them to find 5 tweets of her being like, oh, I just had pad thai, didn't put my cat in it.
Yeah.
And then so everyone quote tweeted all this stuff. Then they got the tweets, and then she did actually get fired from her job.
That's crazy.
As Adult Swim. So she got fired from her job, and then, but
that's confirmed?
Yeah.
Adult Swim. What did she do on Adult Swim?
I don't know,
whatever.
fluffering, I assume.
Barista.
Fluff some of the male feminists. Yeah, she barista. But so then what happened was she like loses her job, and then she still goes, no, I actually, so that was like the big cell phone or whatever. But then she goes, I actually stand by what I said. I should be fired, blah, blah. And you go, oh, it's a cult. Yeah.
Yeah.
But imagine you're like literally, well, yeah, I should get my lashings.
Right. Oh, yeah. I've said it for a long time. A lot of these people have zero like sense of self-preservation. Like they're not like trying to be like, you know what? I should just do the thing that like lets me kind of like keep this like job that I've worked for 10 years.
But some of it started with self-preservation.
Yeah.
Like a lot of it started with
like, maybe they're like, well, no, because it's like, I think.
It started with more than self-preservation.
It's like they're trying to, it's almost like an advancement.
Yeah.
It's like, they're like, I'm here, I want to go higher. So now I'm going to like go, like try and call this guy out and like, you know, put myself above him, at least like kind of morally, whatever, like essentially saying like Shane Gillis had something to do with like murders, like, you know, and then it backfired on her. And then she had to be like, yeah, I mean, at that point she was kind of fucked because the mob just kind of,
what are you going to do?
Took over. But the mob started taking over.
It is a fucking a one that, I mean, you know, Patrick's kind of like, oh, people shouldn't give up. This is war. Like that's sort of his take. But it is sort of a weird one because it's like they kind of, you know, someone like that says, okay, I actually do deserve my thing. And then some people that were making fun of her were like, oh, she shouldn't actually get canceled. And it was like, okay, we're just back at square one, I guess. It's just one person.
I mean, that's the problem is like, it's not like she's going to be like, okay, you get to keep your job. Did you learn your lesson? Like, she's like, no, it's like, you didn't cancel, you didn't fire me. So I'm going to keep doing this shit.
There is something to be said
about. It's almost like she
about,
has to learn the lesson, but then at the same time, it's like, I don't want her. Like,
it's not about them learning a lesson. It's about, okay, I always go back to even when you're talking about, you know, religion or anything like that, right? The idea that you don't replace something with more rules. You replace something with something that's fucking cooler. You know, Kurt Metzger had a good one where he's like, no, you replace it with something shit that's more fun. Yeah. Like I always kind of say, it's like, you know, it's people partying in a bar and the people are like, oh, they're Nazis, you know, or they're white, blasphemous, the devil. And you're like, no, we're just fucking at a bar, right? And with that, it's like, there is something to be said about people watching this and being, you know, other Hollywood, like phony people or whatever, watching that being like, yeah, maybe being the wreck everyone's life person isn't ideal.
Totally. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, you would hope so. Like, I'm sure in Hollywood, it's like there's a lot of hers. I mean, there's probably a lot of, you know, someone took her job at Adult Swim. Like, you know, the job, someone's
but do you think that
replaced her?
So if you're the person that loses your job and then someone else takes that job of Adult Swim, do you think that they're the same? It's either they go, I need to scrub everything first, then I can scold.
The real lesson for this whole thing is like delete your tweets.
Yeah, but also just imagine being the person that like scrubbed everything you've ever done. Go back, you delete your Twitter, delete your old Facebook, and then you're like, good, now I can yell at people.
Totally.
It's like you have to be such a piece of shit.
100%, but I think you have to be a piece of shit to be that anyway. So it's like at least just fucking like. How do you have that awareness to think like, hey, like, I mean, I get it. Like I've sent tweets where you're like, you don't think anything of it. And then it like, whatever, just blows up and you're like negatively. And you're just like, you weren't kind of expecting it. But like, and so maybe that's the thing.
You had your black people steal tweets.
My black people steal tweets. Exactly. And they play basketball. But no, it's like, you know, maybe they just didn't know that like, she didn't expect it, and then she's like, "Oh, it's too late to fucking go start deleting tweets." But again,
obviously
like,
that was
but also
what happened.
don't be the
But like, that's what I mean. So it's either if you're there, you think that some people would be like, "Yeah, maybe I won't be the It's the Christian that's like, you sinned, and then you're like, and then you used to be a fucking stripper. Like, you know what I mean?
I think it's a cautionary tale specifically for like maybe white people. Because I'm sure like no non-white person saw that and they're like, because they would still be like, although that chick from fucking Teen Vogue.
The cancelers are getting canceled right and left.
Yeah. I mean, and I guess like, at least there's some consistency on it because a lot of the thing forever was like rules for thee, not, rules for whatever, where you're like, why are they only canceling people on one side? So it's like, I mean, the whole system sucks, but at least it's somewhat being handled
and
fairly.
Everyone's moving away from those jobs too, where it's like, that was your quote where it was like, take away your jobs. Like, what jobs? Like, what I mean? But it's, anyways, that was the third self-own. And then a few of the other ones. I'd say that there was the recent one where the army had they instituted gender neutral testing. Yeah. And then they had to get rid of the gender neutral testing because no women could pass it.
Oh, like it was just like testing, like there wasn't specific requirements for women.
Yeah, like things like, can you stand here in a stressful situation without crying? Like that was one of the
Yeah, can you stand at a Starbucks while they fuck up your order two times in a row without just breaking down?
Do your taxes from start to finish, and even if that includes getting an accountant without your boyfriend's help. Carrying groceries.
Carrying all the groceries yourself without asking for help.
Yeah. There was they had to navigate they just had to navigate from one army base to the other with a map. Yeah. Stuff like that.
Al Bundy made the test.
Yeah, so then they basically, it was kind of the same as, do you remember a while ago they did this was an old one, but it was when things were really starting to get crazy, but they were saying that the orchestra.
Yeah, I remember they were doing the blind auditions. And
yeah.
Were like even less women made it. And they were like,
no, it was more of a race thing.
Or I thought it was a gender thing too.
Probably both, but they basically said we need more diversity in violining.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then we're gonna do a blind audition. Yeah, it was like total, like you were behind like a curtain.
And then they go.
So like we can only listen to it, and they're like, yeah, that did not go well.
Yeah, and then basically because they did way less of them, which sort of goes into my.
It's like basically doing like a slam. We're gonna do a blind slam dunk competition. We need more diversity. We're gonna do a slam. There you go. It's genderless, raceless slam dunk competition.
Yeah, we think the judges were picking. These judges are sexist.
Yeah, they're just too pro-black. So it's like,
let's do it. Well, that leads in because the article that I wanted to mainly talk about was in basketball. So there was a couple different things. But if you saw in this week, and this was probably about a week ago, but they did the college basketball, right?
Yeah. They're currently March Madness.
Yeah. And there was like a big uproar about the fact that the women have less stuff than the men.
Well, it was the weight. Yeah, it was the weight. It was pretty fucked up. Like, granted, like nobody gives a shit about women's NCAA unless they like went to that school.
Yes.
But like it's like they air it on TV. Like I'll sometimes be like, and the thing is, you know what the sneakiest thing to do with like the cable is they don't say, they go March Madness and they don't say you're watching women. So like unless you know it super well, you go, oh, Oregon's playing Alabama, and you go click on it and you're like, oh, it's women, and then like I have to flip it. Like I think I'm about to watch the men's, and then it's like the women's, and then I just like have to go through it because I don't want to watch it. But yeah, it's like they gave them like I've been to the worst hotel in the world that has a better gym than that, but it's because it's like a temporary site. But it was weird because you're like, why can't they just share it with the men's? It's just like a weight room.
Yeah, they should be able to share the showers with the men's.
I mean,
as well.
I guess, yeah. I don't know if the NCAA and the NCAA like a women's is like a totally different organization or whatever. But it's like, yeah. Anyways, there's this huge uproar, and then like they're like, and our food's all bad and everything.
So because this happened,
yeah,
it opened up the conversation of should women be paid as much as men in basketball and all that stuff.
I think so. 100%.
Yeah, which I of course think so. Yeah. But which led to this article, which before I even say that, you made a good point today. We were talking, it was like kind of the same thing where, remember when we were talking this, you were saying that, so Comedy Central basically like switched their entire brand and they're like, we're only putting women comics or whatever.
Yeah, they've been doing it for a while.
Okay.
This has been not a recent thing.
But they released the clips of women and everyone in the comments is like, fuck you, this sucks.
They're like, this sucks. There's like not 100%, but like all the top comments are like, this is terrible.
Yeah, their audience is not feeling it.
And then sometimes people are like, this is all right. Like, people are like, I like her energy.
But it's kind of
I like
interesting.
her energy or whatever.
You basically are like, you know that the audience is gonna hate it, and they release it after. But you made the point.
You think someone at Comedy Central though goes, "Wait, there's comments on these"?
Well, that's if you're like, yeah,
Like you feel like maybe like there's like an 85-year-old dude who's like running and he goes, "There's comments on this."
yeah, they give you the thing. It's
I
like,
just figured out how to post these.
we're posting your clip on Comedy Central stand up.
Yeah.
Don't don't look at the comments.
Yeah, you're like it's almost like, hey, we're about to post your clip on the Comedy Central stand up. You're gonna want to maybe not log into Instagram for a week or so. You're gonna be getting tagged a lot.
And it's not their fault.
It's not their fault.
That's what we were saying. It's like
clips,
whatever.
Like,
no, it's this too. Okay, so there's a few things. One is because of their choices of who they're gonna pick, the guys that they're only allowed to pick are legacy famous guys.
Yeah,
so
like,
Bill Burr, Dave Chappelle, and then some chick that's been doing stand up for 3 years in Brooklyn.
Exactly.
And they see this, they see this side by side, and they go, "This is."
And also, a lot of these people started following this page 5 years ago when it was just like Bill Burr and Patrice O'Neill, and then now they started like slowly.
Yeah, and then it's like some chick who's been doing stand up for 2 years.
Yeah, and they're like, and it's
talking
like,
about
but
being non-binary.
Yeah, and getting
they go,
like,
what is this?
Vouched for by Comedy Central. So it's like there's this assumption.
If
that
you
you're
liked
like,
that, you'll love this.
yeah, and there's this assumption that like, wait, you vetted them like you vetted Dave Chappelle. Like, you made sure this is like
exactly
worthy. This is like, people view that as like the major leagues kind of. This is like the.
I've seen that happen to friends of ours where they put the clips out there and they just get fucking blasted.
Lit up.
They get fucking lit up. But it was kind of, you made a good point when we were talking about it, is like, yes, but a lot of this stuff, it kind of just is for girls. Like that stand up, there's probably some audience of women that likes that. But the problem is, but if you ever said that, like, yeah, girls and guys like different stand up, they're like, no, that's because there's sexism. Yeah. That's why guys don't like this.
I said that for a very long time when the, the female like comedy thing for a long time when like, there was more of like an emphasis on, more like female comedians and like they were like, we want to show more. And I was like, it's like, and a lot of guys do this too, where it's like a lot of guys do comedy for guys. I just think guys are maybe like have for a long time were more into stand up, but like forever it's like, it was just a one size fits all kind of comedy. And now it's just getting more like,
and that's what they say that when they do
compartmentalized a bit.
It's kind of that where they're like, oh, we like this comedy. And they're like, no, you don't. That's because you're sexist.
Yes.
And then you go, I don't like that one either. You go, well, that's because you're sexist.
That's because you're sexist. And you go, I don't like this one. It's just because you're racist. And you go, oh.
But I used to say when I remember doing the corner with Hannah or whatever, it's like sometimes you do a set with like Hannah Hogan or whatever. Mm-hmm. Like you would do a set where even if she didn't have like the best set, some girls would be like, oh, I really like that Hannah girl.
Yeah, 100%. It's like they liked it. It's like people have different tastes.
Yeah, because they're sexist.
Because they're sexist. I mean, it's the same thing of like, if you extrapolate comedy to any other art form, you would be like, there's types of music where it's like, yeah, only chicks like that music. Only guys like this music. Now, there's less things where only guys like the music, but there's definitely a million genres or like people where it's like, yeah, only women listen to this.
Yeah.
And the guys they drag to the shows.
And a lot of those are men too. It's like, yeah, like the only thing they like is like, whatever, just like some pop stuff.
Right. But I mean, like Taylor Swift. How many straight dudes are listening to Taylor Swift?
Gay ones, yeah.
Straight guys.
No.
Yeah, not, right? It's like, which is fine.
Can you imagine like just being a Swift head? Like,
yeah, like
that's it.
Like, and you're like, you don't have like a daughter who drags you to that. And you're like just a straight dude who loves Taylor Swift.
You're dragging your wife to it.
Yeah, or whatever. Exactly. Yeah, you're dragging your wife to Taylor Swift. Like,
so the article they wrote was called, women's basketball is better than men's, and this will be a cell phone, and it's by a guy.
Do tell.
So it's by a guy, and
it's definitely a lot of like they try harder, like it's stuff like that. I can already know he's like they try harder, they want it more.
What's your prediction? They want it more.
They want it more. He's
you
like
could
he's like they know there's less money in it, so they really love the game more.
You could tell that they're authentic.
Yeah,
the guys are half-assing it.
Yeah, the guys are half-assing it. They're like in it for the lifestyle. There's no lifestyle with women's basketball. It's like being a fucking like carny, like on the road, like not making any money. You're away from your family. You can't have kids. You're like you're just giving up all this stuff to be a women's basketball player. Where
right.
A guy, you're giving up nothing. He's just
he's getting paid $1 million. Doesn't even want to be there.
Doesn't even want to be there. Doesn't even like basketball.
No sweat.
Just happens to be able to fucking put a ball in a hoop.
It's also a guy that wrote the article, which is like the idea of, do you think, because he worked up at this sports site kind of thing. And
what's the site?
It's called 538.com.
Oh yeah, 538. That's a pretty reputable.
So imagine being
Nate Silver. It's not Nate Silver, but
being a guy that you work at this site, and then they assign you this article, and they're like, women are better men at basketball. It's like, oh, we're doing like a satirical thing. It's like, how is it better? It's like, that's what you have to find out.
See, I wonder if they
You are a
assign
journalist,
him,
aren't
or
you?
if he's like, he just hasn't had something published in 2 months, and he's like, fuck, what am I gonna like? I
How
gotta
do
get
I-
something in there. And he goes, oh, I got it. It's like, yeah, fucking turn this down, why don't you? And then I'll have my own. I'll have a different article. I'll have an article over my blog about how my fucking boss wouldn't.
My
accept
sexist
in
boss.
the middle of this sexism scandal. They wouldn't fucking let me write this article.
I'll have a
about-
different article.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's making a whole case here, and what he says it starts with last month when my editor talked to me with looking into the stats surrounding the notorious Harvard 16-1 upset from 1998. I didn't know much about women's basketball. When I found that upsets are much less common in the NCAA women's tournament that May. My mind jumped to what seemed like a logical explanation that women's sports has lack of depth. So he's saying when he started, he was thinking, he went into the
I mean, it is true. It's like they have these dynasties like UConn and fucking Oregon, and like where these teams are just like they win forever.
Okay.
Tennessee.
And then he says, but it turns out women's college is actually as strong and deep as college age talent as the men's. And as for the rarest talent, it has significantly more so. And the argument that they make in this article, and there's lots more to it, but it draws from the top talent. So what they're saying is that there's actually more people that play, like more women that play basketball. So take, for instance...
Versus what?
Well, I'll show you. Versus men's basketball. They go, take for instance, Serena Williams. Serena is not Serena because she has the fastest serve on earth, but because she's taken on the best competition and the biggest stages in the world. So first of all, I find this is one of the things they always do is they compare team sports, and they always bring up Serena Williams and people like that.
Yeah.
Ronda Rousey, Serena Williams. And you're like, do you really not understand that when two people... Okay, when you're watching a
like
basketball
individual
game,
versus-
when you're watching Conor McGregor fight, you're not watching the top fighter in the world. You're watching the top fighter for that weight class.
Mm-hmm.
So in all of these things, it's fine because they're matched up better.
Mm-hmm.
Like I always, when you're watching like UFC,
Well, not tennis. Tennis is always just like whatever. It's ranking, but it's like a lot of times like a lot of finals. Well,
no, but I'm saying one-on-one sports in general
Mm-hmm.
isn't always about. That's the only one where one-on-one sports are the only one where these two people don't have to be the best, and it's still fun to watch.
Yeah, totally. I mean, with tennis all the time, it's like there'll be a finals, and it'll be like the number 2 seed against the number 30 seed, especially in women's.
Okay, I'll give you like a perfect example, even on like a total low scale. Imagine why do you think YouTube or boxing matches are interesting? Or even if me and you had like some shit talking and we had to have a one-on-one basketball game.
Yeah.
A one-on-one basketball game might kind of be interesting to watch. If me and you and a bunch of people shit talked and they're like, me and my 4 friends are playing your 4, it's
like,
no
just-
longer
it's
interesting.
for sure. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
See what I'm
'Cause it's
saying?
like it's the team dynamic, 100%.
The team dynamic makes it where you're like, okay, if I'm watching a team dynamic, they better be fucking good. That was the thing recently where, who was the guy that he's a basketball player and everyone was talking shit to him and they're saying that, I think we were talking about it, but they basically were like all these people on the internet were talking shit to him and he was like, no, I'm actually fucking sick at basketball. I'm just not the top player in the NBA.
I don't remember. We were talking about that?
Well, basically, all these people were talking shit to this guy.
I saw the thing with
And then
Brian
he goes-
Scalabrine the other day.
And then he
where-
goes, I'll
where he
play
played-
anyone.
Well, he played this kid at a high school. This was like on the
He
internet.
destroyed like 19 people, like
2
one
days
by
ago.
one, like dismantled
that
them.
I remember.
And it's just like, yes, this is a different
But
level
Brian
of
Scalabrine
competition.
was this like what he called him the White Mamba. He played for Boston. And there's this video of this kid at a high school gym in like Compton or USC or something. And the kid's like, this young kid. He's like, I'll fucking dust you. And he's like, this guy's 42 years old, like, big, kind of like not particularly fast, but like he used to play in the NBA. Like people always think you're like, yeah, you were a bench warmer in the NBA. You suck. You're like, no, it's still like fucking one of the top 500 basketball players in the world. Yeah. Like at one point. And then anyways, he just like destroyed this kid who was like 19.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But they say, okay, meanwhile, so they're basically saying there's more teams. There's more teams in the league. And because there's more college age women play basketball, it also must be worth noting that about 22% of high school athletes who play team sports play basketball compared with 17% men. Meanwhile, female college athletes make up 20% of the athletes who play in top team sports, while men's basketball players make up 11%. So this is the part where I'm saying
I mean, there's no female football program.
no, but it's better than that. It's the thing where I say you're CNN when it suits you and Fox when it suits you.
Yeah.
They're saying in their argument that the reason the women's sports is better is because men are more interested in playing other sports than basketball. So extrapolate that now to anything else. Like they're saying that 20% of women play basketball of athletes, whereas only 14% of men play basketball because they're interested in football or hockey or whatever. Yeah. So the whole crux of the argument of why it's better is they're saying it's because they're coming from a whole pool. Like so, if you go back to comedy, you'd basically say. Like if there was 1,000 male comedians and 500 female comedians, you go, well, yeah, men are better at comedy because they're picking from way more people.
Of course. I mean,
so you go, yeah, now do any other thing.
Except for that it's not true in fucking
but that's the thing. So that's the thing. They don't even get to use it because they're saying, well, that's, there's actually more women in basketball, which is why. And you go, okay, so your argument that you would call sexist in any other context, but it's actually not the same because you go, no. They are picking from a bigger pool of girls.
Yeah, of girls. I mean, again, 538. So their whole thing is like the statistics-based stuff. They're the ones who notoriously in 2015 or 2016 picked Hillary Clinton with a 90% certainty to win the presidency. That's like they never will live that down.
Right.
Yeah.
That's these guys.
That's them, 538, yeah.
So yeah, I just thought that was so funny. And then on top of that, you go even more so than just the fact that their argument is that men aren't interested in that sport, so they're actually picking up a less people. It's like, no, the reason they're picking up out of less people in men is because you get weeded out of men's basketball by not being 7 feet tall.
Yeah, there's a million. Dude, I was at a fucking thing last night.
Who would let this article get printed?
It's crazy. I was at a fucking, we went out for dinner with my girl last night, and then she went in to use the bathroom, and she's like, do you see those two huge guys? She's like, there was like 2 7-foot dudes. And then she's like, do you guys play basketball?
You mind if I fuck them?
Yeah, she goes, you mind if I fuck him? And I'm like, you mind if I watch? And, but she was like, I asked them if they were basketball players, and they're like young guys, and they're like, yeah, we like played in Europe for a bit, but like we don't play anymore. And it's like, they're like 7 foot tall, probably like sick basketball players, can't cut it, and they're like, they're like 25 and just like eating dinner at some shitty Mexican restaurant.
What's the thing what percentage of people that are in the NBA, or no, if you're over 7 feet tall, you have a 25% chance of being in the NBA?
No.
Yeah, something like that.
I bet you it's maybe 7 feet at some point.
Yeah, 7 feet. No, it's of the people in the world that are 7 feet, which is only like, 70 or whatever it is. 15 of them are in the NBA or something like that.
No, dude. I bet you the number. I bet you it's like 1%. Because the thing is, most 7-footers are so fucking uncoordinated.
Yeah, and if you can get any amount of your shit together, you're in the NBA.
There's so many 7-footers.
Look it up.
Okay.
What percentage of people over 7 feet are in the NBA?
We'll just figure this out this way. Percentage of people.
But so then on top of that, if you're a guy and you were 6'2", for example, and you're this, fire athlete, you need to literally be the star of the, you need to be like the best player in the world if you're going to cut it. Whereas if you just mosey on over to any other sport.
Yeah. So there's 2,800 people in the world who are 7 foot tall and over. I would have thought it would be more than that, but that's still like, in the NBA, there's probably 10. So 10 out of 2,800.
10 out of 2,800.
Yeah.
Maybe there's more 7-footers now from when that stat happened.
I mean, there's only 12 players per team.
Do you know how many people I've told that stat to?
I mean, that would assume that all players in the NBA are 7 feet tall.
I told 500 people that.
But if you take into account, if you go like, I will give you this. If you take into account playing in Europe and, the G League and like every professional league in the world, like professional basketball player, maybe it is up there. You get a shot.
Okay.
Because I know, it's the old
sounds
adage,
like the stats back.
You can't teach height, but in the NBA, no, because the NBA is like, dude, if you ever go watch like fucking G League and you're like, you're like, oh yeah, the NBA is like they are a lot better, like even than these guys who are amazing,
right?
Because you're like, it's just those little things, like.
Well, they also say one other way to look at a team's recruited talent is to sum up all of its players' talent pools. For example, a team with 100,000 players and is 1 in 50,000 player. And then so they basically just go on to talk about this more. And of course, the top basketball teams, the type you are likely to see when watching the champion tournaments, that feature much stronger talent in females.
Dude, you can literally.
I have a study.
Dude, yeah,
Exhibit A. They can't dunk.
Yeah, dude, you could literally like dig up Carl Sagan, Albert Einstein, get them to put together a theory of why women's basketball is better, and you still be like, no, it's not.
No doubt the women's tournament has a very different character than men's. It's just a bit of a different character.
It's just a bit of a different character.
And I don't mean just the scarcity of dunks. So this guy might not like dunks, you know what I mean? If that is the thing, though, if you were someone that was like dunked on in high school in a very traumatic way.
This guy's getting dunked on a lot, probably, figuratively. But
if you're, you know what I mean? You had like in your high school team, you got dunked on and everyone's laughing and, they booed you out of there and then you got pantsed as you were walking away. Like that, it was a very traumatic moment and you just want to watch basketball without dunks. Then that character might be the right character for you.
That might be for you, yeah. Or your sister plays in the team. It's like always anybody who's ever into women's college basketball, they're like, yeah, my sister plays on the team.
Big upsets are extremely rare and teams perform relatively closer to their expectations, but you don't turn into witness madness, you turn into witness greatness. Except for it's women's greatness.
Yeah, except for it's like nobody knows who any of these people are.
I saw another one. I saw, because I do this joke where I'm like, girls say it's tough to walk alone at night or whatever, right? It's kind of the same thing as this, but they go, I say that girls say that, you don't know what it's like to be a man and walk alone at night or whatever. Mm-hmm. And guys will say, and I'll be like, guys know what it's like to walk alone at night.
Yeah.
You'd be shaking if you're in a fucking alleyway where I grew up, Ajax. You couldn't handle the fucking heat in Ajax, Ontario, dude. Burlington Jew School, that's fucking different. That's a different clock.
I mean, the funniest thing is like we're currently in Miami and like not far from like a bad area.
I just see it as a normal area. Danny sees it as a bad area because of the demographics.
Hard Ryan Long.
Because of to me, I just walk through and that's very normal to me. But for you, you're shaking in your boots. I think the bad area.
I lock my windows.
I see the bad areas when I walk through and people got the strings hanging from their belts. the Jewish, which by the way, why is that? Why do the Jewish people in Miami have the strings hanging from their belts?
They have them everywhere.
I know they have them everywhere, but what is the strings?
I can't. It's called talit, I think. I don't know. It's like it's like an accoutrement, if you will, a Jewish like kind of paraphernalia.
It's just a weird one.
Yeah, I can't remember the reasoning for it.
It's not do-rags. It's not do-rag strings, though?
No, it's not do-rag strings. No, if you look at it, it's almost like a wife beater, but it doesn't have like sides, so you kind of has the hole and you like put it over, and then it has the strings.
Stop it. They're attached to the shirt?
Yeah, they're attached to the shirt. Yeah, hold on.
I thought they were like hooped onto the belt loop.
No.
Well, that's news to me. I thought, but it is interesting that gangster culture and Jewish culture, they both were big into strings hanging down.
Oh, no, so it's not this
from
one.
The belt loop.
I can't remember what it is.
But, okay, whatever. I thought that, if you want to find that. But basically the thing with the men thing. So then this tweet went super viral this week, right? And the idea was like, people were saying that, well, men know what it's like to, feel unsafe or whatever. And she goes, yeah, because of men. Mm-hmm. Right. And then that went like super viral. And you go, it's the same thing as the basketball thing where you would never do that for any other thing. You go, what other group? And I know you can always probably say what other group, like, oh, do that for white people, do this or whatever. Right. But it's like the lack of seeing that arguments that you're against now using them. Cause you go, okay, now do like, a black guy that was like shot by another black guy and he's like, oh, I'm afraid to watch out. And you're like, because of your people, like
totally.
Right.
Yeah.
Go, what other person would like walk through a thing and get the shit kicked out of him? And then they'd be like, well, maybe you should talk to your boys.
Yeah, totally. I mean, yeah, it's insane. What was I talking to you about? Oh, fuck, I can't remember it now, but it was something along that. Anyways, here's the tzitzit. This is what they're called. And this is what it's like a little shawl thing and it has the strings.
Okay, so this looks essentially like a native.
It's kind of like a poncho.
A native poncho.
But it has like, so
it's a Jewish poncho.
It's like a Jew poncho. Yeah, but it has these strings. I don't know what the point of it is. I don't remember. But
it's a ponchosin.
But then there's sometimes these ones. These are like the shitty ones. Oh, you can get them on Amazon if you want to use my referral link. It's like the four corners of this shirt.
That's
It's
insane.
but there's no side. That's the weird thing.
So it's part of the shirt.
Yeah, well, you can get ones.
Does it give you powers, or how does it work?
I guess, yeah. Why else would you wear it if it didn't give you powers?
Well, so in the thing, to me, it would be the equivalent of going to like a woman drowns her daughter, and the daughter,
That's what we were talking about. We were talking about that Daniel Sloss thing, remember?
Yeah.
Where he had that stand-up clip that was like making the rounds, where he's like, literally it was from stand-up. It was like 2 minutes of him being like, talk to your boys. Like, it's not enough to do nothing. Like, you have to literally like.
That was a wild one, yeah.
Yeah,
There
that was,
wasn't a
and
single
you're
laugh.
like, and then he's like, there's like this weird like attempt at a joke for like a second, like after like 2 minutes of just like berating men, and he's like, talk to your boys. He's like, because one rape is too many, and we're all complicit. And I'm like, well, and he's like, my friend raped someone, and I'm like, okay, so you're friends with rapists. I guess you're a bad judge of character. But and then you're like, but why not do that for all things then? Like if you're saying like
yes, that's the point that I'm making.
Yeah, you're making. I know because I was like trying to think.
If you go, oh yeah, you're, I friggin' my mom almost drowned me. It's like, well, you should talk to women about getting their shit under
hey,
control.
women, like you on Twitter, Ryan's like, hey, women. It's like
talk to your girls.
Yeah,
drowning.
It's like my girlfriend hit me last night. Domestic abuse against men, not cool. Every woman, talk to your women.
Talk to
friends.
your women.
Yeah, and you're like, okay.
But and you know what? I'd even be fine if you say logically, you go, okay. Like if you're in a relationship with like a chick or whatever, you go, okay, fine, let's make that argument. But we're making that argument always. So it's like,
obviously.
So it's like, okay, now we're picking groups and blaming them. Is that what we're doing now? Yeah. We're going, when things happen, we're picking groups and blaming them.
Yeah. As long as they're the allowable groups. There's basically like, there's a few acceptable groups.
Yeah, you go do other groups now, and you go. Well, no.
I mean, the funniest is probably someone is like sees that, and then they're like, they probably do go like they don't really get the kind of testiness of the whole thing, and then they do that logical thing, and then
I think so. Well, people think like that. People think in logic.
Exactly.
And especially it all boils down to that. It's like baiting them. It's like, yeah, men are,
Do you think how many guys
unsafe
watch
because of men?
Daniel Sloss's comedy? They're like at a comedy show and then they fucking get out of there and they're like, man, that was killer. Hold on, I gotta call my boys though. Like, group chat, if you guys fucking rape anybody ever again, I'm gonna fucking snap. Okay, this is a no rape friend group. I'm gonna hang up. I go, I just watched some really insightful stand up comedy.
Yeah. It's 100% patting yourself on the back.
Yeah, it's like dudes are like, imagine like you receive that call from your friend. You go, hey, Ryan, I just wanted to tell you that I will be really mad if you rape anybody from this point forward. I was like, you're like, I know I've never said anything.
I know you had a hall pass before.
Yeah, it's like if you raped anybody before, I don't want to know about it. But from this point forward, no raping. And you're like,
I don't want to know about it.
You're like, no
What's
rapes.
done is done.
Yeah, what's done is done, but I just watched some comedy and no more raping. And if you haven't yet, good, but never, no rapes. And
hang up your tools.
Yeah, and you go,
I want that balaclava. If I come see a balaclava.
But imagine you're on the receiving end of that from your boy, and you're like,
the fuck is wrong?
Like, are you all right? Like, what? Did you just get raped or something? Like, that would be the thing. You go, are you being raped right now? What's going on? He goes, no.
Yeah, so they do. It's the classic move that's going on right now.
Yeah.
And you go, I get, and obviously it's not like this is some new thing, but I'm not pointing this out to, again, to say, why can't I do this? Mm-hmm. It's just like that's why I was saying all these cell phones. It's like the lack of these people's ability to like play by their own rules.
For sure. And it's like, honestly, it's like we learned 20 years ago that you're like, yeah, generalizations are like not good to do because it's like, like people were like, yeah, maybe we shouldn't be generalizing so much.
You see,
and then now they're like, oh no, definitely generalize, just specifically.
There's also such you can make like a different point where it's like, there is something to be said about generalizations, especially with cultures. If you're like, this culture is more likely this, it's like, whatever, it's true, but it's like the point is, are we holding someone accountable for that?
Of course, it's like,
are you
going to be like applying it to every single?
No, but
member?
You go, is this your fault?
Mm-hmm. Well, which would be applying it to like, you're like, just because there are like trends or whatever, you don't. The whole point is you don't go to every person and be like, you are this trend.
Is rigging the banks your fault?
Exactly. I mean, I've had to handle it. I've helped. Bringing some,
Yeah, Jews
some
have been next on the chopping block a little bit, right? You saw it turn probably with when Israel became like sort of the bad guy as per social justice, and it was kind of you go, oh, interesting.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
That's one of those.
I mean,
that's one thing that the like far left and far right agree. Like,
yeah,
Jews.
totally. Well, it's weird because like the far left and the far right, but then it was like forever. It was like not forever, but for a long time, it was mostly like it wasn't even the far left that had a beef with Israel. It was mostly just like, terrorists and like a lot of people in like the Middle East.
I don't call them terrorists. I just say that they're brown, but I don't know. Whatever. You sort of refer to them that way, and I don't see it that way.
But it was just like people in the Middle East who were like hate Jews.
You're saying the whole country. You're saying all of fucking the Middle East. You're
all of
calling them
the entire country of the Middle East. Yes.
Entire country of
the
the
whole
Middle East.
the Middle East, the country.
That was another thing with the terrorist, the recent the white shooter or whatever. Mm-hmm. He did
They're all white, Ryan.
Yeah, they're all white. The shooter that they were saying was white. There was literal people that were calling him a terrorist, and they basically were like, I apologize for calling like a brown guy a terrorist.
I know.
And you're like, well, this one was.
It's so weird. I was saying that. It's like,
they're
basically
like,
the
this
moment
white terrorist, and then they're like, it was a brown guy that you called a terrorist. They go, I'm so sorry.
Right, yeah.
But he was.
They go, it wasn't, no. And they go, no, he was a lone wolf. I feel like so much of this stuff is all just revenge. Like, it's like we're in like this revenge world where like people are like, well, you did this to us a long time ago, so now we want to just flip the script and we're just going to do it to you.
Yeah,
but pretend like we're not.
I was doing that line when we were talking today about for the movie. I'm not going to, right now, 90% of CEOs are, and 90% of CEOs are men. And I'm not going to arrest till we've reached a full equality, and that's flipped.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of what it is. They're like, look, you guys were like, white people were like racist against us forever. So we're like, we just want to be racist against you for some period of time. But then,
yeah,
like that's kind of what the feeling is on like the subtext is like, they're just, just let us be racist towards you for a while. And then,
which again,
and if they just said that, you'd be like, fine.
And to be honest, I don't even mind any of that stuff as much. It's the fucking logic, like the logic hypocrisies that I get the most annoyed by.
For sure, because then because you're like, okay, here we go, let's break out some race statistics.
No, I just hate the 1 + 1 = 2 stuff. Like I get so
because you want to be like, okay, I have some other 1 + 1 = 2 stuff.
And
no, not so
that's
fast.
That's not
pal.
even what it is, really. It's more.
No,
they're more telling me 1 + 1 = 3.
Yeah,
that's what I'm. It's the 2 + 2 = 5. That's
totally.
Is that? But then they wrote another article. I made my list of cell phones. So this is the other one. Is probably the biggest one of all time was Burger King's.
That was the best.
Women belong in the kitchen.
Got a few days of laughs out of that.
Yeah, that was a great one. But this one, they said the Bloomberg. They said your washing machine is a feminist icon.
Bloomberg wrote that?
Yeah.
The finance site?
Yeah. Well, Bloomberg writes a lot of wacky shit.
Yeah. Okay.
But the idea of it is it's because when the washing machine came out, women didn't have to do as much. They didn't have to do that anymore. So it made their lives easy because 90% of their life was, washing. But I like the idea that your fleshlight is a feminist icon.
But didn't Asian people have to, like, weren't they the original
What do you think
washing
about
machines?
What?
Weren't like Asian people like the original washing machines?
Wow.
So, no, it's true. Like there was like for a long time when like Asian people were like only allowed to do certain businesses in like the United States, and it was like one of them was like that's why a lot of them like washing services or whatever like in laundromats are like that, and then maybe I don't like so wouldn't they be feminist icons? Just Asian people?
So Asians are feminist icons.
Yeah.
But basically, the other thing you're like, we're. I think you could boil it all down to like, inventions are good.
Yeah, exactly.
But there's, because it's like,
the best is like, okay, so who invented this washing machine? They go,
shut the fuck up.
I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, but also, I mean, what was the other party of that doing? It's like at the time, if anything, the washing machine might have been bad. Where they're like, okay, I'm gonna go work in the coal mines, and they go, oh, I wish, but all these dirty laundry. I would love to come help.
What though? I do actually. Maybe we'll go back to a feminist icon because probably the guy who invented it was like, it was to shut his wife up. He's like, all right, here you go, leave me alone. Made your goddamn washing machine. It's a goddamn machine that washes your shit.
Do you think by that logic, guess it's taxes are a feminist icon because they replaced your wife spending your money? So, because for before that, girls had to do the job of spending all your money, and then the government introduced taxes.
The government goes,
and then they said, "Well, I don't have to do as much."
And the emotional labor required to spend all your money. That's a lot. It is quite a bit.
It spent all your cash. Dan, we were about to do some events this week, and then Danny's chick was proposing some pretty pricey options.
Honestly, the thing that I take the most issue with is she proposed the thing where she goes like, "Is this DJ thing?" And she goes, "Yeah, it's $30 for women and $50 for men." Which is, first off, it's just like, yeah, so $80. Like it's like $80 for men, and then, but also it's like, just, I don't know. I have a principle thing where I was like, wait, they're charging me more. It's like I'm going with my girlfriend.
Yeah,
it's like, what do I don't.
You're not a threat.
I'm not even that.
You shouldn't be a threat anyway. They're like, but yeah, because
but
you're
I'm
going to
like,
be looking, you're going to be trying to pick up chicks, and you go,
but I'm like,
look at me.
I don't know. I just take some sort of like where I'm like, wait, I have to fucking like pay more money even though I'm going with my girlfriend and I'm paying for her and like we're going
because
together.
you're bringing chum, and what they're hoping.
That's what I'm saying. So at least let her in for free or something.
Well, they want her to be in for free, and you would wait in the car. That's what they're
that's
hoping.
ideally. Because it's $50 for me to come in, but they'll give me $50 if I just don't come in. It's like $30 or free for her to come in.
Drop her off.
Yeah, drop her. Ideally.
Yeah, the washing machine basically made it liberated women, so it's like now you can be single. Because you could basically there was a time where you probably you basically need to be in a relationship because of all this stuff. And I think that would probably be what you'd say. It's like all of these machines made it so you can probably be single longer without. Because if you're even before, it's like if you're a guy in the blah, you're probably like, oh, I need a wife, blah blah. Whereas now you're like, do I really need a wife? Like I could just get a washing machine.
Yeah. I mean, a corollary to that is I did laundry last night, and then my girl was like, she's like, can you do some of this stuff? And then she left a fucking tag in it, and like a paper tag, and it just like destroyed everything. And then I had to do it all over again. Right. Yeah. So it's like, if anything, they're holding us back with the washing machine.
I don't like to trust women with my things. I'm very against that because I stretch out my shirts, and then on top of that, I've had some experiences with a girlfriend and B, my mom, shrinking and pinking my stuff.
Oh, see, I don't have white, so I don't worry about that.
Oh,
but it was covered. All my shit was covered in this, like, it's like, imagine just like all this paper just like becomes like a paste and just covers all your shit. Yeah. And I was like, you left a tag in there, and she's like, oh, whoops. And I'm like,
you know what else I saw? That when I was on the internet, and I saw, WeTransfer, right?
Yeah.
Because my question is kind of, where does this stuff people go? But I saw, where does this stuff go in your opinion? Because I saw on WeTransfer, it was every day I sign up, I use the site, right? Mm-hmm. And every time I go to it, the big ad on the page is, trans people, whatever, like you name it, right? Mm-hmm. Asian Lives Matter probably this week, whatever. And you go, this is a site for like file services, right? So all you could possibly be doing is turning people off that disagree with that stuff.
Yeah.
Like anyone that goes to the site is using it already. Mm-hmm. So are they basically saying...
It's amazing service, by the way, too. It's like, I remember the first time I ever used it, I was like, this is incredible.
But what do you think the point of that is? What do you think that they're thinking? Is it advertising people to go, this is just what you do? Do they live on Twitter?
Yeah. It's like when you're a tech company, and that's what you do. I want to see what they have up right now.
But I understand that's what they do. But why?
Well, I mean, the Asian Lives Matter stuff or whatever. Is that an actual thing?
I don't even know if it was that. But my point is there's always some new thing and it's very niche. It'll be like, support, children transitioning or whatever. And you go, what is the...
I mean, maybe that's what they're about. Maybe they're...
But is that what it is? Is that what it is? The CEO is like, I don't care about money.
We don't care if we'll lose whatever percentage of...
Is it a publicly traded company?
No, it's private company.
Do you think... But is there any benefit for these places?
Like,
or is it strictly social?
I don't think there's a real benefit other than they just feel good about themselves because you're not getting more, like nobody's like, oh, I'm using you didn't do a Trans Lives Matter thing. I'm going to go use your competitor.
See, I see it as it's like young employees and young
They're just trying to be like, so like
Young
so many
ad
tech
people.
and so many tech companies have this stink on them as being like evil. So they're like, we're trying to just be like a not evil. I think they're trying to like purposely be like, how can we use WeTransfer for good? Which is like crazy because you're like, it's like a tiny utility that exists on the internet. So they're probably like in their mind, they have meetings. They're like, what can we do for good? And besides donating money, they're probably like, oh, we could like people look at our webpage all the time. Like, why don't we put a thing on there?
I think you're being generous for what's going on. The idea that behind all of this stuff isn't we're going to make more money because of this. It has to be.
I don't know.
I don't have
Maybe.
faith in these people like that where I see some, you see some
Maybe
advertising campaign, like the same thing
Do
as
they
you
have
see an advertising
advertising?
campaign and you go, oh, that's good of them to spend $1
Advertising
billion.
different. I think.
But it's advertising on their page.
But that's what I'm saying is it's different if you see an advertisement for like a product when you're not.
But what's the
like,
difference
on-
if
you're watching TV and you see like a woke advertisement, but you're like you weren't going to that. But once
it's
you're
still
on,
that
that's what I'm
ad
saying,
space is still worth a lot of money.
No, I understand that. Like they could monetize that. I don't know. I mean, I find it hard to believe that they're making more money by not selling that ad space.
I think, but my point is, I think they're like held hostage. They have to be held hostage by their young employees.
That's true. Yeah, for sure. Like I'm sure there's an element of it. Because it's like, I don't know. They're not like a social media thing. They're just like, they're like a weird tech utility. So it's like, I don't like, how like they have the whole thing where it's like tech companies have all this huge liberal bias. Like I get that in social media companies like Twitter and stuff. I don't know about like a WeTransfer. It seems like they would just be only engineers. Like the whole company is just a bunch of engineers, and then like some people at the top.
You think
like,
that they're the engineers? They're in the code, and then also let's work on our activism right now.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no. I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's the executives who are deciding this to pat themselves on the back. That's what I would guess, because I don't think it's like you're.
Why don't we slip that puppy on there, and then I can go out to the parties in Silicon Valley and be like,
yeah, and then
pretty
you're
good at
also
me.
like your criticism proof. Like they'll be like, because I'm sure sometimes they'll be like, oh, WeTransfer, you make $100 million a year. What are you doing to make the world better? And they'd be like, oh, well, now that you asked, like we put this fucking thing on our page.
Yeah, but that doesn't really make sense for the tech companies because their whole thing is we are making the world like, what do you mean? We like revolutionized file sharing.
Yeah, but that's not.
They're not a fucking oil company where they have this like huge PR problem.
No, I agree with that, but I think people would be like, yeah, but you make money on that. They're like, that's a money making service that you have. So it's like that doesn't they wouldn't count that. Like you have to do something like you're expected to do something above that.
I guess.
Especially in like Silicon Valley, I think the vibe there is like you got to do something like, you don't want to be Facebook, that's for sure.
Well, there's definitely something going on, but I don't know if it's as simple as that. But so if I was to look, did you see the like Candace Owens and talking about Cardi B and stuff like that?
I saw it briefly, yeah.
Thought it was like such an interesting.
Like she's basically saying like Cardi B's like soiling the fucking like minds of America, and she's like, Candace Owens is a bit of like a fucking like the Tipper Gore vibe, or like trying to get fucking NWA canceled or whatever.
Well, it's kind of gone back, and it's very complicated. So it's like a nuanced situation, but it's because she is right that they're shoving it down your throats, and that's why. But it's kind of this thing where you go, you want to do the thing that is more dangerous. Like there's a reason why people want to have sex on a plane.
Yeah.
Because it's fucking cool to do or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the context matters that right now you have all these people kind of being like overly like sex
What was her
positive.
actual beef with
Her
fucking-
beef was that,
Like
Candace Owens was gyrating her or that fucking Cardi B was gyrating her hips a bit or whatever, right?
Yeah, it's basically what they were giving Elvis shit for.
Well, kind of, yeah. And I think it's, but yeah, so
like he's the devil gyrating his hips.
yeah. And you go, is this conservatives have like a little bit of like cultural heat right now? And then this is where it already is like starting. And they go already starting to be like, well, also we need to worry about the culture. And you go, you are kind of right. They are kind of right that someone needs to be the dad or mom or whatever. Mm-hmm. But whoever wants to do that is going to lose. They don't, you can't also be like, hey, we're the cool culture part, but also like kids, but this and that. It's like, so it's almost like they're competing for who can be less cool a little bit.
I mean, if you're gonna rail against popular music in any capacity, there's no way you come out as like winning from a cool standpoint. It's like even.
But if you're not a cool standpoint, it's like that's how you get anyone to kind of anyone that's young.
Or
anyway.
you get young people.
Which is, but I'm just saying,
going against
but their
Cardi
whole
B,
thing is
you're
they're
gonna
like we want to like get the culture, you know. That's kind of their whole thing.
Yeah. And for some,
you don't do it by
like,
scolding people. Period.
No, like you're gonna get a lot of fucking people who are like Turning Point USA to be like, yeah, I agree with you. Cardi B is the devil or whatever, and then you're like, okay,
Yeah, and
you're just getting people to agree with you.
It's sort of attached to that thing where it's an eye roll if you go and, you know, it's like when you're fishing in a pond, if someone's like, you know, people should be having sex, girls should be having sex with 95 people. And it's like, shut the fuck up. But then as soon as you're like, well, how many should they? Well, Ryan, how many do you think you have sex? You go, do you guys do whatever the fuck you want?
Totally.
Like, I'm not getting involved in this, you know. Which, I mean, whatever, if they're going to try to say we're the ones trying to design the world, but it's all that whoever wants to decide to be the authoritarian sort of person, you end up, like, as soon as you're the person that's like, this is what people should do, you kind of end up...
I mean, whatever. If you're passing judgment being like, oh, this is smut, and like, you're like, okay, whatever, it's fucking... It's hip-hop.
Nudie magazines are bad, hip-hop's bad.
But it's like,
It's back to the Bill
welcome
O'Reilly.
to the world of hip-hop.
Okay,
like,
so let me tell you my theory.
Go watch a bunch of videos and tell me what else you think about this genre as a whole. Like, the whole thing's like that.
Right. And my theory...
And if you want to be rap is not cool, like, good luck with that. Like,
yeah, but even, I've said this before, Michael, even if they're right, it's like, there is this push. I you know, a lot of these people talk about, like, you know, we got to get the culture and stuff like that. It's like, you don't get it by scolding people, but more so my take is, it was almost a little bit, if you even look at, maybe it's a little bit of like, there's still the feminine and masculine side of because it's always like the feminine's a little more lectury almost, where it's like, that's now that like Pwn and Libs is getting like, that's how the Pwn and Libs community, when it gets feminine, that's what it starts looking like.
Getting a little naggy is what you're saying. Those lib pwners starting to nag a bit too much.
Do you know what I mean?
Kind of, yeah.
It's like, you know, Pwn and Libs, but it's like, but also, you know.
But also, it's actually very much ideologically in line with those people. Like, it's almost like they deviated a bit and they're like, hey, we're pretty cool.
That's what I'm saying.
And then it's like back to your regularly scheduled programming of us being like, this is smut. And it's like,
well, it's this. They were saying basically it started by being like, look at these fucking retarded rules all these fucking dumb liberals have.
Yeah.
And everyone's like,
and
yeah, these guys are idiots.
Yeah. And people
and then they're like, okay, now here's our rules.
Yeah. And you go, hey, remember? And then no, it's more like, hey, remember all the stuff we were getting on about like before we had a couple good points?
It's back.
We didn't change on any of that. And you're like, family values, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, oh, yeah, okay. We got it.
Yeah, so maybe it's a little bit of that.
It's like they were given a lot of leeway because they made some good points that people were like, finally, someone's just saying something like, you know, so there's a voice of reason and it happens to be on the other side.
Yeah, it's finally normally speaking. All it took was someone to be like, okay, this is ridiculous.
Exactly.
At a time when saying this is ridiculous gets you banished from society.
Totally. And then people were like, oh, wow, look at them. Like, I never like considered them to be like, you know, on point. And then they're just like, yeah, okay, we're back to our bullshit. Like,
yeah. And you go,
you got to go to church every Sunday and you Cardi B's bad. And you're like,
okay, I'm not doing that either.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not gonna
okay. Yeah. I'm not, I don't want to,
first off, the idea that
admit that there's like 10,000 genders, but like I also don't want to fucking,
yeah, be like Cardi B is the fucking devil's tool or whatever. And the whole idea that like, oh, they're throwing Cardi B in your face. Who is? Music stations that play music that's popular?
But that's where I was saying where
it's like
there's some degree of it is being thrown in your face, and that's the funny part is.
I mean, I follow her. I still don't. I go on Instagram. I don't see tons.
But that's why it's changed because it's not like the fucking the Grammys or whatever it is. But it's not the.
Right, because it was from.
But they're throwing in your face like this is empowering,
right?
Because I understand how it would annoy them even more because they're not even throwing in your face like this is badass. They're throwing in your face like.
But I mean, didn't fucking Christina Aguilera and Britney Spears like make out in the Grammys? It's like they've been doing the Grammys is like their literal last death rattle right now. They are doing whatever they can to make people care.
I understand,
and talk
but
about them.
even then it was kind of like, ooh, risque.
Yeah.
You know, it was like a big deal. Where now it's kind of like, yeah, like this is what it should be. Like you're not, if you're not this, you're a problem.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
but it's.
There's so many things where I'm like the stuff where I'm just like, I just refuse to get sucked into care. It is women's sports where like with the, like I said this, but like with the trans sports, and I'm just like, you're not roping me into caring about this. I'm sorry. Like when they were like they're like trans people are ruining women's sports. I'm like, didn't care about women's sports before, not caring about it now. You can do whatever the fuck you want with it. I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm not getting suckered into it. It's like I feel like a lot of times you're getting like kind of fished in. I'm like, don't care.
But even the
don't care,
see, I have that
care.
argument sometimes with chicks where
and
I'll
it's
be like,
delicate because sometimes you're like, no, this is the thing I should care about. But then I'm sometimes like,
but I'm saying I don't care about it. I've ever said that's one of my favorite ones always, because you go, it's a bunch of groups fighting and none of it affects me.
yeah, totally.
But I always argue on the thing, like, you know, I'll be talking to a girl and she'll be like, or my chick or whatever, and she'll be like, oh, I don't care, but, you know, I don't think it's a big deal. And then she goes, but I care about this and this and this. And you go, okay, but then why don't you think that here? If you care about women, how are you now you're going to say, it's like the same thing as when they point out the Asian people, they go, oh, I care about all Asian lives matter. And you go, you know, okay, but right here, you were like championing them.
Yeah,
getting
there's
kicked
like
out of Harvard.
concentration camps in fucking China. Why is that not your entire
Right,
identity?
So, and I'm just like, just admit that you like all the left wing things, and that's it.
Yeah.
And you go, the reason you don't care about this one is because it doesn't fit your agenda. And I go, so when a lot of times I'll be arguing with like her, and I'll be like, whatever, you don't have to care. But don't act like, oh, I just don't care about this one issue, but I care about these ones. No. You don't care about this issue because it doesn't fit your issues that you want to protect, that you want to list up. And for you to say that you disagree, you have to admit that you're logically inconsistent, or you have to go against it, in which case your whole identity shattered.
Is hard. Yeah, which is hard too, because then people who...
So that's why I get caught up in that argument. I never care about the thing.
Yeah.
It's never about the thing.
Yeah, it's never about the thing. No, of course it's never about the thing. But sometimes I'm just like, do I want to wade into it, or just like... You know,
well, sometimes it's all so fucking interconnected.
I know, it's true. I understand that for sure.
So I think, yeah, I mean, with all of that stuff, I think that it's different than the last time, but it's the same.
Yeah,
and
totally.
I did notice it more when the presidents changed. Mm-hmm. So now that like Biden's in, it's like instead of you're seeing a little more of the, you know, telling you what to do.
Yeah, they're going back to like their thing. You know, they're
maybe, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
No, I think you're right. They're just like they lost a lot of the talking points when Trump left, and now they have to go back to kind of this. But it's going to take tested.
But it's going to be very hard for like liberals to ever go back to like, we're the cool kids. Like how?
100%.
How ever?
Yeah. It'll take a while.
How would liberals ever go back to?
I mean, really, it's like the cool kids or whatever, if there is such a thing. It's like the people who are like don't identify with either of those sides.
There just has to be, it has to be the new fucking like 20-year-olds that don't give a shit about any of this shit.
Yeah, they're like we have.
But you're
like,
fucking,
we don't identify one way or another.
Yeah, your friend that's 35 that
other
you've
than
watched,
non-binary.
Your friend that's 35 that you've watched, you know, arguing on the being this and this person is a not and this and that. Like you don't get to now come back and be like, yo, what's
I mean, there's a couple.
Can you believe these fuddy duddies? And you go, you know what I mean? You don't get to go, can you believe them, you know, getting mad about the Grammys? I go, you're enraged 24 hours a day about fucking nothing.
I mean, the main one is like there's one comic, but there's a few, but there's one I'm thinking of specifically who like his whole identity was just like anti-Trump on Twitter, and then Trump went away, and then you just see him like trying to like figure out
trying to be funny again,
trying to figure out like who he is, trying to like like he's like honestly he's like he has to like he's like it's like the fucking thing where he's like
coming out of a spell.
He needs like the government to like take him into like a camp, break him down, and build him back up because he is like lost.
Yeah, he needs the rehabilitation.
Yeah, he like needs he's like honestly like you see he's like kind of like lost, and he's like you could see like because like all like his like engagements way down because like all the anti-Trump shit like got him tons of engagement, but it doesn't make
his
sense
engagement's
anymore.
not hitting.
So it's like the engagement's gone. So then he's just like he's
Yeah, what are you gonna be, the Biden sick guy?
yeah, he's just like in the void, like floating around, and like
Yeah.
it's like, but it's like it's just kind of sad to watch.
And especially when before all this stuff, their humor was, about nothing, about like goofy stuff.
Totally. It's, you know what it is? It's like a guy who took steroids and he's like, I'm gonna be jacked for 4 years, and now he has cancer, and he's like, and he's like, fuck, I can't take steroids anymore. Plus, I have cancer from it. And I'm like, God damn it! Like no going back. And it's like
I've seen quite a bit of that.
Yeah.
It is funny to watch them online. And they're just like, ever notice it, like M&M's, like you're
Yeah,
fucking,
exactly.
you get all over your hand. Oh, I got sauce. I got pasta sauce on my fucking sweater again.
and they gotta like pivot from being like anti-Trump to like, fucking that Jeff Bezos guy's got too much money on. like, dude, that sucks.
Yeah, because they need to find someone new, but there isn't enough.
But there's not enough like hate directed at any target anymore where you can just latch on and ride that. Like, so it's like you have to like, yeah, they're lost. I don't know.
Yeah, the full out reply guy.
Yeah, like reply, like a lot of them. The one I think of specifically is a reply guy. He's like a comic. He was like a big reply guy, and he's like, I don't know. He's just
You think anyone just shoot themselves? Just looking at the gun.
yeah. They're like, I'm not needed anymore.
The last, we did.
But it's because we did it. It's like
Yeah.
they don't need me anymore.
Success. Did you see? This is sort of like another race thing, but we can wrap on this since we're still in Miami. So basically, did you see the spring break COVID, the spring break Miami fight?
Yeah, I had 1 million people message me about it,
Yeah. So now they have a curfew because of.
and they're reenacting the curfew as of tonight. They put it back on because they're expecting a crazy, like, I guess this weekend now, because tonight's Thursday, is like is another spring break long weekend that they're expecting. So they just went and closed everything again.
So why is it called Black Spring Break?
I don't know. I didn't know that it was called Black Spring Break. I
I
thought it was just spring break.
That's what people told me. It's called Black Spring Break, and it was because I went and it was kind of like Caravana.
Yeah, it was Caravana. I don't know.
Was it the? So I guess I wanted to ask that question without fucking getting in. Like, regardless of the riots, for some reason I went. So I went to
black schools
hang out with
I
John
know there
B.
are
Guy
black
was fucking lit up.
I know there are black schools.
Apparently, it's called Black Spring Break. Like it's a fucking its own thing.
Yeah, but like it's like what. Like white people aren't allowed, or just like it's just this thing where black people all come down to Florida.
No, it was like Caravana. It was exactly like Caravana.
Okay.
So I went and I guess it was. So apparently it was a lot of like people getting fight. White ruckus is more like flipping cars.
Mm-hmm.
You can even look when the Raptors won the parade. There was some black ruckus when the Vancouver Canucks won or didn't get in.
Yeah, letting cop car.
The white ruckus looks more like flipping cars, stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't know, but I'm looking at there is a lot of stuff.
But apparently there's like military vehicles in the streets. It's a whole mess.
Well, dude, there was I was reading about it.
Looked fun as fuck. I literally was like, I wish I was there.
Just before the podcast, I was like reading an article because they were saying like there's curfews again, and they were saying like there was over 100 guns seized like last weekend or something, and like
really
crazy drug charges. Someone was killed in like a store. There was like there's a lot of shit going down.
So I went there. Wasn't on that day, I don't think, but I went to hung out with John B. and he was fucking lit up. So and then I left, but I went out with one of his friends, but then I kind of went by myself and I walked around by myself.
Yeah,
literally 8,000, like fucking.
But it's all just black,
exclusively.
Huh? I don't know.
The odd fucking white chick that was looked like a black guy's girlfriend.
Right.
Exclusively.
And what is something like that way?
What? What does something like that would look like? K-Swiss shoes, big hoop earring.
I said way.
Oh, way? She weighed in. But there was so there was a few things that I noticed about it. The first one is that because I always make the argument that when people talk about like appropriation and stuff like that, it goes all ways, and I don't think it's bad. People actually kind of gave me shit about my Chinese shirt. I got a few messages being like,
that's appropriation.
Yeah, and I'm like, what do you mean? I think the year of the whatever is cool.
Yeah.
And they're like, this is poor taste and whatever, and I go, okay, don't buy one.
Yeah, don't buy one.
But I always say it's like things that are cool unfortunately, a product of it being cool is everyone wants to do it and like sort of tell you.
Yeah.
But some like black culture adopted white stuff, and I've always said with Lil Wayne and all those people, it's like when people point out,
the skater.
yeah, I go, yeah, what Lil Wayne looks like every one of my friends 10 years ago. You know what I mean? Skinny jeans, all that stuff. But what thing that I noticed was, which I think that is something that black dudes need to clear up, is they all still do the saggy jeans below the butt.
Yeah.
But they're all tight jeans now.
Super tight jeans.
So
yeah.
it's a lot of people walking around with
They're like,
tight jeans, shirt that goes to just their waist. So they're not even wearing the
And
big
just-
long shirt anymore.
yeah. Oh, I know. And then just like the underwear.
Straight up, but
I love it.
yeah, it's like, it looks like when my grandfather used to make fun of us
Yeah.
by being like, oh, this is what you look like. And you go, it doesn't look like that. Now that's what
It literally does.
looks like an adult, like a grandfather
Yeah.
who has like a dad jeans on.
Yeah.
And just like a shirt.
I know. I'm aware. My favorite of those. We talked about those two kids on TikTok, who they just
Yeah,
like,
those
the-
guys-
the
those guys are phenomenal.
Red, the twins. Oh my god, dude, I'm like obsessed with them.
Those guys are great.
They are fucking. They're like just disasters. What
What do they do?
They're rappers. Their name. One of them is like Red, and the other I can't. They're these twins from like Orlando or something. They're in
Yeah.
Florida.
And they have this rap song that blows.
They have the rap. It's
You
like
don't know their name still, though.
Red X or something. Okay, I can't look on TikTok because it'll sound. But it's
Okay.
like Red, and like one of them's name's Red, and the other one like REDD, and the other one is fuck. I can't remember the twins, but they have like crazy face tattoos all over their face, and they're like we're rappers, and they're like we're blowing up all this stuff, and it's like the worst, like past comically bad rap. It's like because the videos are bad, like you can't understand what they're saying, which I get. There's mumble rap, but like. You know, they're fucking like the words don't sync up with like their mouths in the video. And it's just like them in like a parking garage. Like
It's just total garbage.
it's so bad.
Well, what? So the two things that
Here we go, right here.
Okay.
I found
You're
it.
gonna play one for a
Red,
second?
no, Red X.
It's Red X if you want to
Red
look it up.
X4.
The things I noticed, which one was the saggy jean look. It isn't very good. With the new version.
Yeah,
The new version's weird. You know, like, but I did see a lot of the cultures, like I saw like black dudes with Beatles shirts and stuff like that. And I was like, you'd think it'd be, you know, which is probably positive that all this, you know, everyone likes each other's stuff or whatever. But I didn't feel there a million black people all walking around, you know, I didn't feel the same hostility racially that I feel from like white people in New York. Like I was literally, everyone's like, what's up? You know, it was like
do those white
very
people?
positive
Do those
environment.
white people all wear the same matching black suits and live in Williamsburg?
No,
potentially?
it seems like racial hostility all comes from metropolitans.
Yeah. Well, Florida, it's like, you know, I think
Now-
there's an element too. It's like where they very much have this feeling where they're like a majority here, not a majority, a literal majority, but like they're not. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a
maybe
lot
the
of a part
dynamic-
of it
Yeah,
is.
the dynamic.
They're just
I
like,
was
oh,
about to
look
be
at
like
this
they're not
white
a
boy.
minority here, but like they definitely are in Florida, but to a lesser extent than anywhere else.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's it's that thing where the angriest, guy in the crew is always the short guy, like the craziest gangster's always like the white guy.
In Miami, probably.
And I think it's that. It's like the most black power black guys are always like went to like school with white people, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But so, and then on top of that, it sounds like such a silly point or whatever, but it kind of just reminded me like all these people just fucking want to put everyone in racial groups and only talk about it. Which I mean, I don't want to talk about it, but and really like make everyone say we're separate. I was watching and I was just kind of like walking around drinking by myself, and it was just every same thing, and every race just has their own version. Like, you know, the black group, and then there was like the fat black guy with the photographers trying to simp for the girls.
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
like they all just have.
We're all the same, is
They
what
all
I'm
have the
saying.
same archetypes.
Yeah.
Like you literally watch, like, you know, there was the nerdy black guy in the group trying to like, you know, be nice to the girls, and then there's, you know, there was like the simp, and then there was the one guy that was trying to look cool. It's like they're all the fucking.
What a wholesome message, Ryan.
It is a wholesome.
We're all just the same.
But my point is,
Kumbaya.
I bet you go to fucking like the middle of Syria or something like that, some super Muslim place, you're still gonna have like the one guy that's kind of simping for
course,
chick.
yeah,
like,
totally.
you know what I mean? No matter where you go in the world,
those are that's
those
are all archetypes.
they all still have the exact same archetypes. So that's why it's even crazier when they try to say like, oh, this archetype is like, you know, a white guy or a black guy, and you go, they're all the same. Everyone has the same archetype. Maybe that when you're more in power, this archetype rises, or
Sure.
whoever knows what it is.
Yeah.
But it is so funny that they all have the. I was watching. I was thinking about that. I was just like, okay, picture this. Like if it was just the white guy, this guy would be so and so. This guy would be this. If you look at like a group of Asian people, you're like, oh, this guy's like the Chad of the group. Like you just, it's all the exact fucking. You know what I mean?
Like, it's all the same. It's like the power dynamics are always.
Yeah, maybe that's a fucking dorky point, but I honestly was like,
And we
thinking that
all
watching
bleed
them.
the same blood.
Yeah, whatever. You can make it fucking too cool for school, Danny.
I think it's too cool. It's a nice message. It's a nice message.
Nice message.
It's a nice message.
I wasn't thinking
you're
of
a
it.
good boy, and it's a nice message.
I was more thinking of it that it's funny.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Like,
Especially to see them in other races sometimes, especially if you expect it to be like, you're like, oh, that's a white only thing.
yeah, especially when you see a
And then
bunch of like guys that look like gangsters.
It's like, you know, the Simpsons, and then they like do like Bart Brown and Bart Asian, and like you keep seeing Bart. It's like, that's Bart, but it's like they just put the filter on him to make him like whatever.
They all have the one guy in the group that's the punching bag. You know, they all have the fucking same archetypes.
Totally.
But so the last thing I'll say is I went to the beach again, and so I saw the fucking most insane thing. So public beach, Miami.
Yeah.
Again, I went for 2 hours and then left again.
Yeah, nice.
I listened to a podcast this time, so it was a little better. But there was a guy, packed beach, fishing with a lure.
Yeah.
And doing the things.
But like in the ocean?
People are swimming.
That's crazy because there's like
It was the craziest thing I've ever seen.
no shortage of fishing piers around here where it's like specifically designated areas to fish.
If his lure hit the wind, it would hit a kid.
And just hooked them, and he's like, whatever.
Yeah, I was literally going to go swimming in that area, and I'm like, there's a guy throwing a fucking hook in the water.
That's insane. That's
crazy, right?
Yeah, that's insane. Only because there's like fishing piers along the ocean, like everywhere.
Is that illegal?
What he was doing?
I felt like that guy. I was like, is this legal?
Yeah, it is legal. I don't think so. And also, it's like that can't be the best spot to be fishing. But maybe he's like the fishing areas are too crowded, so I'm gonna like, go where there are. But then you're like, yeah, there's all these people here. Yeah, that's kind of insane. I would be
wacky.
Like, I've spent not a crazy amount of time in Florida, but enough time, and I've never seen that.
There's also a guy doing like weird ass yoga shit.
Yeah. Oh, I saw that in the.
Yeah. You saw the photo
with the U.S. flag.
It was insanity.
Yeah. My favorite thing was
he's just standing there, and at one point we made eye contact with the other people at the beach, and everyone was just like, "The fuck is this guy doing?" It's psychopath.
I went to a wedding.
The guy doing nude karate in his backyard.
Yeah, was he doing like kind of like Tai Chi?
Some weird ass shit. It wasn't Tai Chi. It was some new thing he made up.
He made it up. Yeah, he's like, it'll be the next Tai Chi, I'm sure, if he's planning on it. I went to this wedding. This is the best. I said in the group chat, but like I went in Tampa. My girl's friend got married, and we went to this wedding in Tampa. Pretty nice wedding. And they had this band, and then at the end of the night, 150 people in this like big-ish room, but like not small. Nobody wearing a mask. Like nobody cares about it. It's Tampa. Like not that I did either or whatever.
Yeah, I don't give a shit.
But like lots of old people, like lots of like heavier people, all that stuff. And then the end of the night, the band was me, heaviest. And but at the end of the night, the band was like, I remember, and I was the only one who even like noticed this, and I was like literally like laughing like a fucking lunatic. They're like, the band's like, all right, we're gonna do the last song of the night. Everybody get in real close together. Like you're like. It's still like a, I know nobody cares, but you're like, it's still a pandemic, and they're like they're really emphasizing.
Were you the guy that was like, oh, masks on?
Excuse me, can we put our mask on? I was just like funny because I'm like not that I care, and everybody just like went and did their thing, but I'm just like, that's how little they give a shit. But we're like the band,
huddle. They're doing a huddle.
The band is like everybody get in, like you're like, because like. That would be if someone took a video. Check out what they're fucking doing in Florida.
Now spit in his mouth. Now spit in his mouth.
But dude, if I was like fucking, like if I was one of those assholes who was like, check what's going on in Florida, and they're get real close to everybody, as close as possible.
Closer.
We're getting a fucking mosh pit going, and people are like, Florida, fuck, classic Florida.
What was your steel drum guy? He said there was.
Oh, and then there was at the rehearsal dinner, there's a dude who was like. instead of like a, I mean, it was like for a rehearsal dinner, they had their own like musician, but he had the steel drums, and he was like, and I couldn't get over. I just thought it was so funny that this dude like dedicated his life to the steel drum. And he's playing. He had this like look on his face. He's playing. He's like.
Didn't you say he was shop talking with you after?
No, he was talking with someone else. Someone else came up to him and be like, "Hey, what are those?
What kind of sticks do you use?"
Yeah, he goes, and he's like, "Yeah, they're like $1,850." Like he's talking about like the price, and he's like, and then like I like didn't want to. I had no interest in it. I just thought it was funny that like this was his like kind of thing. Was he was into steel drumming? White guy,
yeah,
like white guy, probably like early 40s.
Funny thing,
pretty clean cut guy too. Not like a hippie dude, like really clean cut guy. It's just like something didn't like add up to it. And then I was kind of laughing. And then this girl, my friend's girl was like, or my girl's friend was like, she's like, she went up to him and he's like, hey, Danny wants to know how to like play or whatever. And like, I didn't, but then I was like, he's like, yeah, come on over. And then I like come on over and he's like, this is like an A. He's like, this is A. And he's like, this is how you do it. He's like, don't hit too hard. He's like,
and this is a D.
He's like, you're going to put it on a tune. And then it's like, oh my God, it was. And then I was like, okay, cool. And then he gave me his card. He's like, I'm like,
well, that's what I was saying. That's the
always
old joke.
Always be networking.
No, that's how some guy, you hire a steel drum player for your wedding or for New Year's, and they come and these guy killed it. He was the best guy. And you go, we want to hire you next New Year's. And then he goes, oh, cool. Would you mind if we leave our gear here? Because they only get 1 gig a year. That's the one joke. And then what do you call a drummer without a girlfriend? Homeless.
Yeah.
And the other one is they got these two people together. They wanted to put people by race, or no, by they wanted to put people by how smart they were, not race. So they put they get see if they have things in common. So they get the smartest guys in the world, the 180 IQ. They get together, start talking about rocket scientists, and then they get the 130 IQs together, and they start talking about math and economics or whatever.
Yeah.
They get 100 IQ together. They these guys they start talking about like politics, maybe stuff like that. They get the 70 IQs together. They start talking about sports. Then they get these guys 50 IQ. The only two guys. The one guy looks at the other. So what type of sticks do you use?
That's what I was doing. I goes like, how'd you get into this? I had to ask him, how did you get into this? And he goes,
what did he say?
He goes, I'm like, how long have you been doing this? He's like, I've been playing since I was 9. So like, we're talking like 30 plus years. He's been playing these steel drums.
Wow.
And he's like, yeah, it's like my parents were really big into Jimmy Buffett. So I guess
he's always been, and he's been trying to impress his dad ever since.
I guess he's like, parents are parrot heads or whatever. And
you
they
like this, Dad?
Yeah, and they just like got him into steel drums. Like, imagine like that's the thing your parents signed you up for. Do you want to do
we
karate
like
or steel
Jimmy
drum?
Buffett. We didn't want you to be a steel drum player.
Yeah, you're like we
paid for you to go to college.
Yeah, we like getting fucking drunk and listening to some Jimmy Buffett. We don't want you to be a steel drum player professionally.
That's the other one. No, there's two things you don't want your son to be. A drummer or a goalie.
Yeah, I know. And that was to my girl. She goes, do you think he does this professionally? I'm like, what do you think? It's like, have you ever seen a steel drummer before that wasn't like on an island somewhere, like in Jamaica or some shit? There's like, or like in like the Whalers.
Yeah.
It's like, no, he's not in the Whalers. So no, he doesn't do this professionally.
Well, that officially wraps up the second Boys Cast Miami with Punching Down Podcast, Danny Jokes, at Danny Jokes. If you guys don't already follow him at his YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you don't already, follow me on Instagram, because that is a good place to see stuff that I post. And because, a lot of times, that's probably the only place I post like stories and shit like that, if anyone...
You're off the Fleets. I gave
Fleets fucking blow,
I gave Fleets
dude.
like a week, and then
I gave
like,
Fleets a second. I don't have swipe ups on Fleets, which is...
Yeah, I'm not doing...
And then they don't even get them that high, like... when I post to Instagram, I get
Fleets.
like 8,000 views on it. When I post the story, when I post a Fleet, it's like, I don't know, they don't the Fleets real quick with no juice.
Yeah, I'm not doing Fleets.
And I don't look at anyone else's Fleets. It's like,
no, I just ignore them. Yeah, I just ignore them. Though that's the thing. It's like nobody's been able to figure out just like a software that just posts everything at once. I don't know.
Yeah,
but nobody wants. Obviously, none of the sites want you to be able to do that.
Okay. Anyways, peace.